Emerson Hancock is reportedly getting the call up to the bigs. Unfortunately, it's because Bryan Woo is headed to the injured list. We'll talk to Hancock's biggest hater. That's the man to my left about all of it coming up here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Tuesday, August 8th, 2023. This is Ty Gonzalez and Hater McGee for the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. You can now get a free 7-day trial to check out the show. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description of this episode. Mariners begin a 2-game set with the Padres tonight. You can catch all the action on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. We'll get you set for that one later on in the show. But for now, our lead story, right-handed pitcher and former first-round draft pick, Emerson Hancock, has reportedly been called up by the Mariners. Robert Murray of FanSided, the first to report it. Ryan Divish has confirmed the promotion for Hancock and says the Mariners will officially make the move tomorrow, which would seem to indicate Hancock will make his debut tomorrow as well. Unfortunately, this move has been made because Bryan Woo is headed to the injured list with right forearm inflammation. Yeah, not great. Mariners calling up reliever Ryder Ryan to take Woo's spot on the roster for the day, and then they'll obviously call up Hancock tomorrow, as we expect. So Colby, this was exciting news at first because the first piece of news we got was Hancock's getting called up, and I immediately thought this just meant, all right, 6-man rotation or Woo's getting bumped to the bullpen, whatever. Instead, it means that Woo is heading to the IL. So this is a bit of a bummer. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess the good thing about being realistic about Hancock's potential impact is that I was never jacked for the call up, so I didn't have as far to fall when I got the Bryan Woo news. And yeah, obviously it's concerning because Woo already has a Tommy John on his track record, and forearm strains, forearm tightness, that's usually like the precursor to some serious issues. It was the original designation that put Robbie Ray on the IL at the beginning of the year. And I believe it also was Marco who is working through a forearm strain of some kind. But either way, it's not good. You hope it's a designation thing. It's just a phantom IL. And like, we got to come up with a reason for that. And you could just send him down if you don't want him to pitch for a couple weeks, but you would also burn an option on him. So does that really matter? Probably not, but I tend to lean towards this isn't a ghost thing. Maybe it's just some tenderness, just some soreness, but I don't think that they would just, put him on the IL with this designation if it wasn't legitimate. I think they would just send him down. Right. So I don't know. Maybe the plan all along was just, not pitch him. So they were going to send him down for Hancock, but they wanted the extra bullpen arm today. So I guess you just put him on the IL. I don't know. We'll see. Scott is going to talk to the media here in, 2.5, 3 hours. So we won't know during the show. But my guess is that this is more than a ghost IL thing. It's more than a procedural move. But hopefully not, because, Woo, even if his innings were going to be limited down the stretch, like we all thought, he still is a guy who can definitely help you out of the bullpen or, in the few handful of starts he gets. So we'll have to wait and see. But not great.
So with Woo, we'll see. Like, Scott Service is going to talk to the media, etc. But if this is it for him, because we're running out of time here on the season, so maybe he's able to make his way back. But if not, his final line looks like this: 55 innings pitched, 9.82 Ks per nine, 278 walks per nine, 4.75 ERA, 4.07 FIP. We saw some signs of fatigue in his last few starts, especially as he got later into the starts. But I didn't necessarily see anything that would indicate injury to me. Did you notice anything with him?
No, especially since his last start, the velocity actually jumped up, and he had control and command of everything. So it really didn't seem to affect him, and not even in his last, I guess I don't know. He wasn't as good in the final inning as he was in the first, but that's just typically how it works anyway. So no, nothing really stood out. Like the fastball velo was up, command looked roughly the same as it had been all year. So no, I didn't see anything at the end of his last start that would lead me to believe that this was lingering, or this was in the background. So maybe it's just a side session thing. Maybe he threw a bullpen and something didn't feel right the other day. But no, I didn't see anything in his last start that would make me think that, this is something he's been pushing through and trying to work through.
Yeah, because when I first heard about the injury, I reflected back on the start against the Angels a few nights ago, and I couldn't remember anything that looked off with him. He looked more than fine. Yeah, he made a mistake to Moustakas, I think it was. Can't remember, but that was really it. He was pretty sharp for the most part in his last start. So, and he was able to finish that outing, on a regular schedule. So, yeah, kind of confused about what's going on there. But if this is actually a real injury, right? They're not phantom ILing him. If he is able to make his way back, if this isn't as bad of news as maybe it seems on the surface, what would you foresee his role being once he gets healthy? Bullpen strictly, or 6-man rotation, piggyback? What do you think?
Well, he's going to miss 2 starts at least, and that's if he's only on the IL for the 15 days. So miss 2 starts minimum. That could be enough to buy him an extra couple weeks in the rotation. Again, this is assuming that it's a phantom IL thing. Then I think he probably goes back into the rotation. Maybe they do 6-man rotation one more time through or something like that, and that's how they kind of try and manage it, and also give Bryce Miller a little bit of a break. So I think if this is all just kind of procedural, then I think he probably goes back into the rotation, and it's a 6-man rotation spot would be my guess for at least one time through, maybe 2, and then it's just you kind of see where he's at, how he feels, how much energy he has left, and then you decide, do we ship him to the bullpen, or do we ship Hancock to the bullpen? I think Hancock's probably up for the rest of the year, whether he's a starter or they just move him to the pen. So, yeah, I think, Woo, if this is all, fake, then I think he probably slides back in the rotation in a couple weeks, and then they kind of just play it each time through the rotation. And maybe it's, hey, we're skipping him this time because we have that off day, or maybe it's, hey, we're going to piggyback him, or it's just, hey, Hancock's going to get the start and Woo's going to go to the pen for the week or something like that. So, yeah, that's probably best case scenario.
Well, the benefactor of this unfortunate news is Emerson Hancock. We're going to be talking about him in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by BetterHelp. Getting to know yourself can be a lifelong process, especially because we're always growing and changing. Therapy is all about deepening your self-awareness and understanding, because sometimes we don't know what we want or why we react the way we do until we talk through things. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. Therapy can be helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It can empower you to be the best version of yourself. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and if you don't feel that your match is suitable for you, no worries. You can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnMLB today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnMLB. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Again, the Mariners and the Padres get underway tonight for a 2-game set. You can catch all the action on the Mariners' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. We'll also be talking about Game 1 of this series a little later on in the show. But starting Game 2, presumably, is going to be Emerson Hancock, the Mariners' first-round draft pick back in 2020. which is a pretty special draft for you and I, because that's when we started the Control the Zone podcast, was right around the time of that draft. So Emerson Hancock kind of, in a way, has a special place in my heart, but definitely not a special place in your heart, because you are his number one biggest hater. So tell us why you're not as excited about Hancock as you would be, or as you were with Woo and Miller and Gilbert and Kirby, etc.
First of all, it's Herbie Hancock. Second of all, I don't hate Emerson Hancock. I just see him for what he is, which is a back of the rotation guy, whereas other people are being led to believe by other certain people that Hancock is still the guy they drafted 6th overall, and it's not. It's a different profile. He's just a back end guy. That's all he is. He's fairly athletic, but he's not super athletic. He doesn't really have much of a breaking ball. The slider is flat, and it's mediocre at best. Like when Hancock has his best slider, it's 50 grade.
Is there an ice cream truck?
No, that was, I don't know, some truck outside that just honked. But Hancock's best slider, like his ceiling on the slider, is 50 grade, league average, and that's only on occasion. The fastball, it's the four seamer is pretty flat. It doesn't have much ride to it. It's very hittable pitch, and so much so that he's moved to the two seamer a lot. And the two seamer is better, but you're still not getting a ton of value out of the fastball. We're not talking about the kind of value that Bryce Miller or Bryan Woo get out of their fastball. And his best pitch is a pitch that honestly he throws less than the other two. And that's his changeup. It's a legit changeup. It's a 60 grade changeup. But he doesn't throw it a ton. And part of that is because he's trying to work on the slider and the fastball, because the changeup's already there. But he's not a super athlete. He's not, 55 command, 55 control. He's not breaking out a 70 slider on any occasions. And the fastball, the two seamer, is at best a 55 pitch at best. Like, he's just kind of a guy. He throws strikes. That's fine. Helpful. He's not going to miss a ton of bats, not with his breaking stuff. And the only real shot he has at a true out pitch is the changeup, which fine. I mean, there are some, good pitchers with changeups as their out pitch, but how many of them are right-handed, and how many of them are around in 2023?
Well,
like, how many right-handers' best pitch is their changeup?
Well, and also, if you want to try and get the most out of your changeup, you need to get value out of your fastball.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, right? So we'll see. He's worked on some things as of late. He got off to a really rocky start in the Texas League. And overall, his numbers: 4.32 ERA this year, 4.08 FIP, 983 Ks per nine, 349 walks per nine, over 98 innings pitched. But since June 1st, and he's won a couple of Texas League Pitcher of the Week awards during that time, 890 Ks per nine, 187 walks per nine, 297 ERA, 340 FIP, over 57 and 2/3 innings pitched. Last 5 starts, kind of a mixed bag. He had a blow up on July 5th where he gave up 9 runs. But then his next 3 starts, just 1 run allowed over 20 innings. His last start back on Wednesday, 3 earned runs over 5 innings pitched, 7 strikeouts. And again, he pitched last Wednesday. So it'll be a week tomorrow since the last time he took the mound. So I would assume he's going to start tomorrow's game. So what do you think about that? I mean, we're going to talk about it more tomorrow because we're doing the show before the game tomorrow. But just what do you think about this matchup for him as his first start in Major League Baseball against like Juan Soto and Manny Machado, etc.?
It's not an easy one. I'm honestly, I'm a little more concerned about how he's going to handle the righties than I am the lefties. Obviously, Juan Soto is Juan Soto, so you're worried about that regardless. But I think the changeup gives him a really good shot against most of the lefties in that lineup. So I'm more worried about, like, how does he get out Machado and Kim when he doesn't have a pitch that's really going to break away from them all that much? He could throw the changeup to righty still. It's good. It's a good pitch. Again, I want to reiterate that. And so maybe the fact that it's his Major League debut, maybe he'll just lean on his best pitch more than we saw in the minors. But yeah, it's not an ideal matchup. It certainly isn't. You'd much rather, get the soft landing like Bryce Miller got right against Oakland, but it is what it is. So, it's certainly not an easy matchup. It's not so much the lefty bats that scare me in that lineup. There's really just the one. And even though he's like arguably the top 3 hitter on the planet,
Might be the best pure hitter in all baseball. Like,
might be, yeah. He's having a down year with like a 150 WRC plus right now. So, So Soto is obviously, a guy that you just have to respect and be afraid of regardless of who's pitching. But aside from that, I think he'll handle the lefties fine. I don't know what he's going to do. How is he going to get righties out with consistency? So you never know in a debut. Sometimes guys come out and they throw harder. Sometimes they have like crisper stuff. Sometimes it's just flat because the adrenaline is just kind of overtaking their emotions and they can't locate or they can't, spin the ball the way they need to. And so we'll see how Hancock handles it. Again, not an ideal situation. Hopefully they win tonight so that, there's like not this pressure of coming off of a loss and trying to maintain momentum on Hancock. But, we'll see how he does. It's not an easy matchup, not the worst matchup. It's not Texas in June, right? Like it's not Bryan Woo, but it's certainly not Bryce Miller. So we'll see how he handles it. Check the velocity early. He's usually 93 to 95. So you want him to be in that range tomorrow. We'll see if he's 97, 98, then there's a lot of adrenaline there and hopefully he can control that. If he's 90, 91, it's probably adrenaline, but he's trying so hard to throw strikes that he's not trusting his stuff. So we'll see how it looks tomorrow, but it's not the best matchup for him. It's not the best matchup for any pitcher though.
Any preference on who you would like him to work with in the battery, either Murphy or Raleigh?
No, I think Darvish is starting tomorrow, so it'll be Raleigh.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it will be. We'll talk more about that game tomorrow, and we'll talk more about our expectations for Hancock in that one. But also, it's not like you could push him to the next series because you're going up against the best team in baseball in the Baltimore Orioles. So, yeah,
on Felix weekend,
sold
out crowds. Yeah,
right. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about tonight's game. That's Logan Gilbert versus Nick Martinez. We're going to go over that one in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. And that's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head on over to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Again, Padres, Mariners start tonight. 2-game set between those two teams. It's the Vetter Cup, of course, which we all care about. All of us. It's such a great rivalry. Ugh. You can catch all the action on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. So Logan Gilbert versus Nick Martinez. Logan Gilbert has been pretty good his last 3 starts, but definitely not at his best. What would you like to see out of him tonight?
At his best. That's how I'd like to see Logan Gilbert today.
Yeah. But some realistic expectations.
No hitter.
Right.
Perfect game.
Perfect game.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, let's get Herman out of here. Yeah.
No, I feel like Logan's at his best this year when he does employ the kitchen sink strategy.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen him the last few times it's out really rely on fastball slider. And I do feel like his best outings this year have come when he's, been roughly 25% split between the four seam, the split, the curve, and the slider. So, maybe that's the matchup. I don't know. It's tough to say. San Diego is a talented team. There's no question about it. They're not a very good team. But there are some legitimate, spots in this lineup where if you make a mistake, they will hurt you badly. So I think first and foremost, the thing you want to see from Logan is you want to see him You want to see him hit that top line of the strike zone with the fastball, because that kind of sets up everything else. If he can throw the curveball early in the game or the slider for strikes, if he can get called strikes on that pitch early, usually a good sign. So I think it's all about working ahead of these guys, just doing what you do best. And I think Gilbert right now is at his best when it is a true, any pitch at any situation type of thing. But obviously, Gilbert is still going to lean heavily on his fastball. That is his best pitch. And the slider is taking steps forward this year. Obviously, the split is been a nice little addition for him as well. But I think Gilbert's at his best when he is, obviously throwing strikes, but he has to velocity at the top of the zone, breaking stuff at the bottom of the zone, and just have a good mix. Don't be too predictable.
That split is going to have to put in some work against Juan Soto tonight. Yeah. So he's going to have to have his best stuff against this lineup. Look, this Padres lineup has been fairly disappointing relative to expectations. Obviously, they're three games under 500 after an NLCS appearance, after spending big on Xander Bogaerts. Bogaerts hasn't been the guy that they were hoping to get there. Just a 105 WRC plus this year. Manny Machado has only really gotten it going lately, like the last few weeks. He was around like an 80 WRC plus for, I think, like the first couple of months of the season. He's now at a 111, so he's been a lot better lately, but still, Machado has not been the guy that we've seen as of late, obviously. Jake Cronenworth is another guy that's really disappointed for them. He's got a 93 WRC plus this year. The biggest change in the Padres lineup really has been that they're getting value out of the catching spot, finally, offensively. Luis Campusano's been really good, and Gary Sanchez has also been really good. I think Campusano's rocking like a 138 WRC plus, and Sanchez is rocking like a 117, something like that. So they're getting value out of there, but guys like Trent Grisham, Jake Cronenworth, etc., have been real big disappointments. But the guys that you really have to worry about here, Ha-Seong Kim, and of course Juan Soto, because Juan Soto can take over a game with his bat.
Sure. I mean, so can Tatis.
So can Tatis. Yeah, didn't even mention Fernando Tatis Jr., who's having a really nice year as well. Yeah.
1 through 4, it's pretty can be pretty lethal. And obviously, the 1 through 4 is Kim, who's having his best year. It's Tatis, who we know how good he is. It's Soto. It's Machado, who's starting to hit a little bit more. And even in the 5-hole, it's Xander, who, despite having a bad year, is still a really good player. And then there's Gary Sanchez has got power at the bottom of the lineup. Campusano has power at the bottom of the lineup. So again, it's a pretty good lineup in theory. It's just been horribly disappointing. So the Mariners pitching has to be good. Like, there's just no way around it. You avoid Blake Snell, which is nice. But obviously, Martinez and Darvish, they're not slouches either. The Padres are a very talented team. They're not a good team, but they're talented, and you just can't roll out of bed and make mistakes and beat these guys. So, you have the big 3-game set coming up. It's pretty important that you at least split this series, and with Hancock on tomorrow, and who knows what you're going to get there. Tonight's game carries a little more weight than maybe you would like. It's a bit of a I don't like the term, but it's a bit of a trap series. I don't think Seattle's looking ahead too bad. I just think that this is a series where people look at it and they say, well, you're better than San Diego, you should beat them. Sure. I mean, that's a fair statement, but it's not like San Diego is the Oakland A's here. Yeah. Like, there are legitimate all-stars throughout this lineup, and
superstars.
And some pretty good pitching, starting pitching.
Yeah, Martinez is having a nice year. Darvish is, obviously not having as great of a year, but he's capable, more than capable.
Darvish. He's going to throw 50, 68 mile an hour curveballs tomorrow, and the Mariners will whiff on 15 of them.
Sure.
It's just that's just what happens. So,
right. So definitely not a gimme here, and you want to be able to go into that Orioles series still feeling pretty good about yourself. You don't want to let this thing snowball. So I think tonight, very important to get a win, so you don't have a ton of pressure on Hancock to make sure you don't get swept in 2 games. But at the end of the day, it's also only 2 games, thankfully. So if it does go awry, you're out of it pretty quick, and you get another off day on Thursday. So before we head out of here, I want to answer a couple of quick questions that we got via email, because I actually missed those yesterday when compiling the questions for Mailbag Monday. So I also want to give a shout out real quick to Jack, who sent us a very kind email congratulating us on 8,000 subscribers and all that. So shout out to Jack. He says that he's going to be watching today. So let's go here to Steven. Who says, first off, I want to say I absolutely love this podcast. I listen to it every day. I listen on Google Podcasts, so it won't let me leave a review or rate it, but believe me, I would give it the highest rating. It is the best Mariners podcast I've listened to. Thank you so much. You're very kind. My question is, with Felix Weekend coming up, who do you think should be the next member of the Mariners Hall of Fame? Follow up, do you think the Mariners should retire 51 for Randy? Thank you for the great podcast. We've talked about the Randy thing. Probably not, because the relationship there is not great, did not end well, and we haven't really seen it start to be repaired in any sort of way either. So yeah, I would say no, though I would like for them to do it. Randy's obviously a legend. I think he should have his number retired along with Ichiro. But yeah,
right. You're gonna retire Ichiro's first.
Yeah. So who should be the next member of the Mariners Hall of Fame, Colby?
Who should it be, or who will it be?
Both.
Who should it be is Rick Riz. Let's get this done already.
Yeah.
Rick had some health issues recently. Let's not wait around on this any longer. So yeah, Riz should be next. In terms of players, I've been an advocate for Mike Cameron for years. He, did the impossible. He replaced Ken Griffey Jr. and did it very, very well. He was, a huge, central figure on the best 4-year run in franchise history. He was an all-star. Like, Mike Cameron should absolutely be in the Team Hall of Fame, but he's not, because he didn't play 5 years. In Seattle, he only played 4 years, which is an argument that I will continue to say is stupid and moronic.
Yep.
And when we get to the time when it's time to talk about Nelson Cruz, again, he should be in the Mariners Hall of Fame, but he probably won't be, because he only played 4 years for Seattle, not 5. That is a self-imposed rule. It's stupid. Honor your best players. Nelson Cruz is without question one of the best. It's probably the second or third best right-handed hitter in your franchise's history.
Nelson Cruz in 4 years was significantly more valuable than like 95% of any player that's played for the Seattle Mariners.
Right. And like, again, that's not to take a shot at like Dan Wilson, but like, come on. Who had a better Mariners career? Nelson Cruz. Who had a longer Mariners career? Dan Wilson. Like, come on. Like, we're not debating this.
Yeah, I don't think longevity should be the only thing that really matters here.
And I think 4 full seasons is enough time to leave a pretty significant impact on your organization. So let's fix that. Mike Cameron should be the next guy in. Nelson Cruz should get in. Who will be the next guy? It'll be Seager.
Ooh, there goes my light. It finally happened on the show.
Yeah.
Finally happened on the show.
Yeah. I would say Riz should be next, and then it should be Cameron, and then Nelson when he officially retires about 3 years after that. But who will be next? It'll be Seager.
Yeah, I would think that it's going to be Kyle Seager, but it should be Rick Riz. It should be Mike Cameron. It should be Nelson Cruz. Absolutely Nelson Cruz. That's a dumb rule. So put Nelly in the Hall once he finally officially retires, because he hasn't done that. But it seems like maybe the league is retiring him, which is sad. We got a couple questions yesterday asking about Nelson Cruz for the Mariners, right? No, the answer is no, and I think that the answer lies in, where's Nelson Cruz playing right now? Nowhere.
I mean, you can't take at-bats away from the great Dom Canzone.
Sure. Poor Dom Canzone has already become the target of your ire.
It's just because it's just because there are people who are already standing him, and all I'm asking for is, can you wait until he's at least a 100 WRC plus hitter? Because right now he's 41% below league average. The Mariners didn't add at the deadline.
Yes.
Stop saying that. You're stupid if you think that.
Yes, we
call
it. We got it. We talked about this on the Patreon.
I think the Mariners added at the deadline. They didn't. At best, you can convince me they made a lateral move, and even that's a huge stretch.
All right.
You don't have to defend Jerry DiPoto every time he makes a move. Next question.
Luke wants to know, hey guys, you guys and other baseball media often talk about windows for teams like the Mariners, with certain young guys coming up at the right times and the team managing club control to hold open a window of concurrent talent. The Mariners window seems to be open or opening right now. How long do you guys think the M's can keep this current window open? What scenarios could keep it open slash close it? So in terms of just like windows in general, it's kind of a thing where you know it when you see it, right? There's a lot of factors that come into play, and like you mentioned, like it's club control, it's age of your core, right? So for the Mariners, like their core is really young, right? Guys like Julio and Jared and George and et cetera. Like the oldest guy part of their core is Luis Castillo, is 31 years old, right? So you're doing a pretty good job on that. You have a very clear path to contending for years and years and years with just based on that alone. But yeah, Colby, what do you think about the Mariners window? How long do you think it's open for?
I don't know. Is Jerry going to continue to hoard prospects and not add to this roster? Then it might close pretty darn quick. But
oh my God.
Yeah, you thought I couldn't go there today.
You're really becoming the anti-Jerry guy.
Yeah. You really thought I wouldn't go there today, didn't you?
No, so I did. I just.
So here's the deal, right? You have. I'm talking. You have Julio. You have Julio in place. You have Cal in place. You have George in place. You have Logan in place for at least the next 4 years. You have those guys locked in. Same with Castillo for at least the next 4 years, unless you trade them, probably for prospects. So you have those guys locked in for the next 4 years. You have Brash, you have Munoz at least for the next 4 years. I think as long as you have that core, and again, that's not counting the guys that they've added to the core, like potentially Jared Kelenic, probably not Dom Canzone. So when you add all that up, I think the window is at least the next 3 or 4 years. Yeah. But obviously the window gets bigger, or it gets left open. I guess it stays open the more impact major leaguers you add to your core. And so maybe Kelenic is that guy. Maybe it is Canzone, obviously not this year, maybe next year. Maybe it is Emerson Hancock. Maybe it is Bryan Woo. Maybe it's Bryce Miller, So as long as you keep adding to that, your window can theoretically stay open forever.
Right.
You kind of look at what the Rays window is.
And that's what the plan is, right?
Right. You want it to, what is the plan? What they tell us the plan is and what they actually do doesn't always line up. But in theory, the window could stay open forever because like look at what the Rays have done for the last decade, right? Have they had a core that they've carried them through for this last decade? No, they don't. But they draft, they develop, they make smart trades. They're savvy in free agency. And so in theory, your window could stay open forever. Where is this current Mariners core? Like where is this window before they have to start making significant additions or subtractions to it? Probably another 3 years after this year. But yeah, in theory, windows can stay open forever. So,
but what about the crest, Colby? 2026. What about the crest?
Well, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about that this winter when Jerry doesn't give out a $50 million contract to anybody.
Right.
We got to save some in reserve, man, in case Laz Montes comes up and is Yordan Alvarez and we have to pay him $250 million because that's likely.
You're really becoming this guy, huh?
No, now I'm just doing it because it makes you annoyed mostly.
Yeah. It's working. You're right.
I know. It's great. I do this to annoy Ty, but also to annoy you in the comments because I know some of you guys out there are like, oh, this is boring. Stop talking about it. No. Never.
So to answer your question, yeah, I would think probably 3 to 5 years, anywhere from that range. But again, as long your superstar player right now, the face of your franchise is 22 years old. Yeah. He might not even hit his prime, what we consider to be his prime, for another 6 years, right? When he turns 28. As long as you have that guy, you have it, the window is at least cracked open. Mm-hmm. But yeah, with George and Cal and potentially Jared, etc., you're good. You got a lot of young pieces. The main faces of your roster are very young and can still be very good for a very long time. So as long as you have that, it's pretty much sky's the limit, right? And then hopefully you can continue to replenish those pieces as the years go by, and guys start to get older and end up leaving for free agency. Because look, you're not going to be able to keep all these guys. Some of them are going to leave in free agency. Cal Raleigh might be that guy. Logan Gilbert might be that guy. I don't think they're going to let George Kirby leave Seattle. But
yeah, the good news is though, and you wouldn't know it by their recent actions, but the Mariners are actually pretty good at bringing in new talent and developing them. I know they like to think that their guys are irreplaceable for some reason, but they've actually proven already that they can bring in new guys and like start, because now we're thinking about Cole Young as potentially being part of your core going forward. And he was just drafted last year. Like that's how quick they're moving. That's how good the development is, which is probably why they should be more aggressive.
So then clearly Dom Canzone and Josh Rojas, they'll be able to figure it out.
Canzone was developed by the Diamondbacks, not the Mariners. Right. Because as we know, development stops at the major league level.
That's right. Development is linear. Right, as we all know.
Always.
Yep. Jesus. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Some people are definitely some people are not going to get that. You're gonna be well, I mean, you've just painted yourself as the anti-Jerry guy now. Congrats.
I mean, that's how you guys want to.
You're gonna get roped into some company that you are not going to like.
That's fine. That's a pretty boring and not unsurprisingly dumb interpretation of what my commentary is, but sure. I mean, I know there are people out there who love to misinterpret my comments. So
I as the host of the Locked On Mariners podcast think that you guys are interpreting his commentary just fine, personally.
And I, as the host of Locked On Mariners, think that Jerry wussed out at the deadline, and I'm still bitter about it. Man up, Jerry. We know you're listening.
Maybe not anymore after last Tuesday's podcast. But
somebody's running scared.
Scared to compete.
All right.
And the show got really unhinged very quickly.
That's going to got to the 24-minute mark. We could have cut it clean, and then you're like, no, let's answer a few of these questions. And you added 13 minutes to it, and you let me get off the rails.
That's what the people want. That's what the people want.
This is on you.
And there goes my light again.
All right, let's.
It's happened twice. This has never happened on Locked On. I've always worried about this happening, and it's never happened until today.
I don't even know this is going to make the show. Let's wrap it up.
It's going to make the show. We're leaving it on. Why not? I don't want to edit. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Trident Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dan Gonzalez, at CANGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well over at Locked On Mariners. That's one word, Locked On Mariners. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Is this fast enough for you? Thank you again for making us your first listen. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.